Welcome to Dare a New Belief, a place to discover what is possible for your life after the loss of a loved one, and where you will find inspiration, insight, support, and love, and hopefully a bit of laughter to help you through the day. Now here's your host, Lorraine Hogan.
Hello and welcome to Dare a New Belief in what is possible for your life. Today, I am so honored to have Lorraine Hoving with me. And Lorraine is a speaker, a radio show host, and a lover of life. When Lorraine turned 60, she realized if she was blessed with 30 more years, her life was already 2/3 over. The weight she had vowed to lose, the health she promised to obtain, lay there in a big heap of empty promises. She wondered if she would or could ever change. And Lorraine dug deep and decided she was 100% responsible for her life. She faced the trauma of her past, learned to forgive others, and to begin her journey to worthiness. Lorraine has now lost a total of 125 pounds.
Yay.
Yes, and continues on her path to total health and wellness in her mind and in her body. In 2018, she was blessed with an opportunity to host her own radio show on SOB Radio, which was then picked up by iHeartRadio, and it is entitled Never Too Late Ever. Lorraine's zest, enthusiasm, and passion are contagious, and you guys will all discover that as you listen along with us today. Welcome, Lorraine.
Thank you, Nada. I am so excited to be here. I love all of you out there. This is going to be an exciting time.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And Lorraine and I just met recently when we were at an event together down in Tampa, Florida. The energy that comes off of you is amazing. It's fabulous. You are good energy to be around. I just know you have so much wisdom to share with the audience.
Well, thank you, Nada.
Yeah, yes. So Lorraine, one of the first things that I want to ask you, because, you know, this show is based on allowing other people to become inspired from hearing other people's stories on how they were able to overcome adversity of whatever it was. And I know for you, you had some major trauma in your childhood. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to tell you. So as you said, that when I was 60, I realized, I looked back and saw all those empty promises lying in a heap. And so I did some soul searching at that time. At 60, I just decided something had to change. And there was a reason. I had lost weight in the past. I had previously lost about 100 pounds and then gained most of it back because I hadn't dealt with what was really eating at me. If you haven't dealt with what's underneath the surface, no matter what you do, you're going to self-sabotage yourself again. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as I started losing the weight, I started getting scared of being seen. So when I turned 60, I realized that something had to change from the inside out. Instead of working on the outside, I needed to work on the inside. And so I started looking at different personal development. I remember just like it was yesterday, going online and looking at personal development classes or anything I could find on past trauma. And so I found a class, and it was recommended to me by somebody in my office, and it was a leadership class. And so I went down to Southern California, and in the class, I learned to go back to some of the trauma. I had lost my father suddenly when I was 12 years old. And I was really, really, really close to my daddy. And there were 6 of us children. My daddy and I kind of spoke the same language, if you know what I mean. We were very affectionate, very loving, very happy-go-lucky. And when he died, suddenly, I still remember going to the door when there was a priest there. I was the one who answered the door, and I will never forget it because I knew something was terribly wrong when I got to the door. They asked for my mom, and my world literally shattered when my daddy died. And I had an older brother who was 2 years older than me. And I think that this is what I think. He's no longer living, so I can't dig into it for sure or know for sure. But I think he might have been jealous of the relationship I had with my daddy, because it was obvious to everyone in the family there was a bond there. And so he started to, once Dad had passed, he started to tease me like incredibly, like it's hard to even imagine. I would call it bullying, but he wasn't, he didn't physically abuse me, but I would call it definitely bullying. I remember him saying, fatty, 2x4, can't get through the bathroom door.
Right.
Yeah, and we had a small bathroom door, and I used to remember looking at that bathroom door, and I'm thinking, what if he's right? What if someday I can't get through the bathroom door? Everything I did, I remember him chasing me around the block with a snake. Every single every single move I made, he teased me about whatever I did. So I began to hide. This is when I think I really began to hide, because I had been a very happy-go-lucky child, loved everybody, loved animals, loved life. And suddenly I have this bully in front of me making fun of every single move I made. So I began to hide. I remember at that time I started sneaking down. I had a bedroom downstairs and my brother was right across from me, and I'd sneak down with a bowl of ice cream at night because I knew if he saw me have the ice cream, he'd tease me. So I'd sneak down. I remember putting the bowl underneath my bed and sneaking up in the morning to wash it. And yeah, in that, I think there's a real good lesson, because what you do in secret, I believe you're as sick as your secrets. And that was a secret to me. I had to start hiding. And so consequently, I started hiding and started putting a few layers on. Of course, at this time, I was maybe 5-10 pounds overweight when he was teasing me. Not bad at all. But then I ended up hiding in that. And then I ended up, my highest weight, Nada, was 275 pounds, which is a lot on a 5'2" frame. So that's where I ended up.
Yeah. So how old were you, Lorraine, when you found yourself at 275 pounds?
Let me see, about 25. Yeah, somewhere around 25, 28. That's when I had gained 60 pounds with each of my babies, and then never lost it in between, and then just kind of got lost in all of it. And 275 pounds was my highest. And I'd say that was probably about 28. That's a good question. I should actually figure it out sometime, but it was about 28. Yeah, because it was after my babies. And then I just never took it off. I never took it off until the time when I took 100 off, and then I self-sabotaged myself again. So.
Right. And isn't that amazing how we do that? We tend to, when we're moving towards the goal that we want or the vision we have in our life, and as we're obtaining it, how it kind of puts us out into the open almost naked, and then we'll come back to that self-sabotaging.
Right.
Did you realize you were doing it? Did you realize you were self-sabotaging, or was it more of a subconscious thing that you were doing?
I think it was definitely a subconscious thing. I didn't realize. I do know that I was starting to feel a little naked, like you said. I'm starting to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm sticking out here, and I've always been able to hide, in the background. And so I do remember feeling that way. But did I think I was actually self-sabotaging myself? Probably not. I was just thinking, oh, Lorraine, you've never been able to do it, so you can't do it this time. So kind of those negative thoughts, and you're just going to gain the weight back. That all of that negative thought, because I hadn't really dealt with the root problem, which ended up being having to go back to my past and actually forgive my brother. Now, I had said to my brother while he was still alive that I had forgiven him,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
was more, I don't know how to explain. It was just something that somebody said, well, you need to forgive him. So I just kind of did. But in this personal development class, I got to go back. They had us actually explain out loud our anger. I said, I'm angry at you. You made me feel, and I just unloaded as if my brother was standing there.
Right.
And I tell you, it was total freedom to unload like that. I even forgave my dad for feeling like I had been abandoned and he left me, and then I had a bully of a brother. You know, and all of this, I realized too, that my brother, so when I forgave him, I realized that he didn't know what he was doing. So that's how you can forgive somebody, is because it's not something they're intentionally, well, he's intentionally doing it, but he's not aware of why he was doing it. And I think he was jealous. And so it was so freeing to forgive him because he didn't know any different. He was a child himself. And then the greatest thing, Nada, what I had to do was, and it was the hardest thing because I pretended I already had done it, but I actually had to forgive myself. And then that makes me a little weepy because in forgiving myself, I had to realize that I had actually, in some ways, stole from my children's life in the fact that I couldn't do some of the things that I could do. When I was 275 pounds and they'd go skiing, I'd sit in the lodge and I'd pretend that it didn't bother me. And I'd read and do all kinds of fun stuff, but it really did bother me. And I had to actually go back and say, you know, I forgive you for that. Because I used to just go, well, that was just part of my journey, and I'd slough it off. But I really had to say, Lorraine, I forgive you that you actually did that to your children. My children, of course, you have never, you know, they love me just the way I was. But
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. So, and did you know, so when you would be sitting in the ski lodge reading a book and your kids are skiing or wherever you happen to be, and you're like, oh no, this is fine. It doesn't bother me at all. Did you deep down inside, do you think that you knew this really does bother me and I'm just shoving down these feelings so I don't have to deal with them?
Right. Exactly. I knew it bothered me. And I shoved it down. And you know how you shove it down is then you do the one thing that you know how to shove it down, and I'd shove it down with food.
Yeah.
So I'd eat so that I could numb that feeling, because I didn't want to deal with that feeling that maybe I was, you know, not living my life to the fullest for my children. And so in order to deal with that, I would numb the feeling. And so it's like a vicious cycle, like somebody would do with possibly with alcohol or some other substance abuse. I would do with food. So
Right.
yeah, so then you don't have to feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And isn't it just, it's so amazing, I think, that so many of us go through life putting on the big facade for everybody when inside we're falling apart, and we know we are, and we know that we're putting on this big show, but we don't know what the steps are to take to heal that, or it's just so painful we just can't step out there and actually start doing something about it. And so we stay in that vicious cycle of doing the same thing over and over and just praying that it's going to end, or somehow I'm going to spin off of this merry-go-round and be able to do it differently. Did it feel like that for you? Like, I know I can make better choices. I know I can do this. And did it feel like, when I say, like, you know, that big facade that we put up, like, you know, oh, I'm tough and I'm strong and I can handle it. And yet it's like there's this little girl inside that's just crying and saying, you know, I need some help here and I don't even know how to reach out.
Right. That little girl was always there that wanted to come back out and play and be that playful, happy go lucky little girl. She didn't know necessarily how to come out. But this is what I've learned, Nada, is that until we take, so we can become the victim. So it was easy for me to say, oh, well, if I, it was my brother's fault. Or if my husband wouldn't bring home tortilla chips, or you know what I mean? We
Right.
go on and on and
Yep.
on in blaming others until I took 100% responsibility. And I actually literally did this. I looked in the mirror because so for people that are overweight, they'll avoid the mirror. If I went by a window, I wouldn't look over at the window because I was scared to see the reflection. Because somehow in our head, we've convinced ourselves it's not as bad as we think.
Right.
And I remember looking at myself when I was about 60, taking my clothes off and looking at the mirror. It wasn't to be nasty to myself or anything. It was to be real with myself, because I looked up on the charts, and hadn't wanted to do this, but I wanted to know what morbidly obese was. And I fell into the category of morbidly obese. So I looked at myself and I said, Lorraine, you are morbidly obese. Not to be mean, because for so long I had hidden. I had pretend it didn't bother my children. I pretend it didn't bother my husband or bother myself. But when I finally did that and took 100% responsibility for me, that is when things changed.
Yeah. Yeah. So why do you think, I mean, I know that it was 60 and you realized if I'm going to live another 30 years, 2/3 of my life is already over, and you took the responsibility. Why was it different this time? Do you think it was because of the age that made it so much different this time, that you were really able to do something with it?
I think a combination. I think it was definitely my age, thinking, wow, 2/3 of my life is over. And I've been trying every New Year's resolution for 42 years. What's that about? I have said every Monday I'm going to start my new diet. And then I wake up on Tuesday and say it's going to be Tuesday. And then suddenly 40 years have passed.
Yes.
So it was part that, and then part, this is what I realized. I have been married to the most wonderful husband for 42 years,
Ah,
and he has loved me through thick and thin. And that is quite literally thick and thin. He has loved me through it all. And in fact, somebody said, wow, your husband's, they were actually surprised that he would stay with me for 42 years, going up to 275. And I said that he loved me for what I was inside. He saw that. And the
yeah.
outside was that's just a frame. That's not your heart. Because I asked him, I said, why have you stuck with me? And he said, it was your heart. I know who you are. So he has always believed in me. So when I turned 60, it was not only turning 60, it was also, here is this man that I have loved through these years, and what would it be like for me to actually rob him of being with me because I was so selfish? You know what I mean? We don't know when, when we're going to go to the other side, of course. But if I can prevent it, what am I doing? Why would I be so selfish as to, if I can help this, if I can live a wonderful life with him into our 90s, why don't I choose that? And so that was some of the wake-up call, not only my age, but the fact this man had stuck with me and I needed to give back to him. So that was part of it too.
That is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And you can feel the power of your love when you're talking about that. And there's no question you guys will be going happily into your 90s and enjoying a beautiful life together.
I love it. If this is what I was thinking, if I can do something that actually can give me a longer life, then that's what I need to be doing. And I would encourage people out there too, in your audience and my audience, now is the time. It's not tomorrow. I've done too many tomorrows. So if you're 25 or 30 and you have a weight problem, the time is now, because, waited and waited all those years. And now I'm living the life of my dreams. Nada, I am so happy and so thankful. And guess what I got back? I got the little girl back, the little girl that was fun-loving and happy and go-lucky and loved everybody. She came back because I dealt with some of that trauma and took off the layers. My life's never been as good as it is now. It's wonderful.
Oh, that is so fantastic, Lorraine. And speaking of the trauma, is that completely healed, or are there pieces that still show up for you and you're still having to work through some stuff, even though you have lost all of this weight? And I can tell you, because I've seen you in person, you are beautiful. You are beautiful from the inside out. You radiate, Lorraine. So
Thank you.
yeah, I mean, it's the truth. You do. Does any of that trauma ever show itself to you anymore?
I would say not really. I'd say, do I still struggle losing weight? Yeah, but not based on necessarily all of a sudden I feel like I need to hide. It's more habits that I've had for all these years because, even when you're hiding, then it becomes habits that you have that are poor. So once in a while I have to deal with that. Would say once I actually forgave my brother and truly forgave him. And then the big, huge thing I would say is the huge, gigantic thing was forgiving myself.
Yeah.
Because when I forgave myself, I could move on.
Yeah.
Because somewhere in there, I hadn't forgiven myself. And that's where a lot of the self-sabotage, because I didn't deserve it. But guess what, Nada? I do deserve it. And I do feel worthy. And in forgiving myself, it's as if I said, I am worthy. I am worthy of my health, just like everybody out there is worthy. We are intricately created. When we put ourselves down and think that we don't deserve it, it's not true. We really do deserve it.
Yes.
I think that I have never, ever gone back once I forgave myself.
Yeah. And what year was that, Lorraine, that you completely forgave yourself?
I'd say I started on that journey about 60, and probably I'm 64 now. And I would say I went to the course and over a year period, maybe 61, 62, because somebody said to me, they were working with me and they said, Lorraine, who else do you need to forgive? And I said, nobody. I said, I've forgiven everybody in my life. I'm empty, I said, I've forgiven everybody. And they said, no, you've got to forgive somebody else. And then suddenly it's like I broke down in just sobs. And I said, I have to forgive myself. And when I forgave myself, it gave me permission to love myself just the way I was and say, Lorraine, you are a whole person and you deserve to be healthy.
Oh, I think that's so beautiful, Lorraine. And I'm just so honored, and I just applaud you, because it's easy to say all of it, but not take any of the action steps and do anything about it. So you walked your talk, and it's it's just beautiful. I want to ask you about your brother. How many years ago, is that okay? Can we talk about your brother?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
So how many years ago was it that he passed away?
He passed away about, I'd say 7 or 8 years ago. His death was kind of tragic. I actually loved my brother. He was really a fun brother as he got older. He still teased me, had a good sense of humor, but he still teased me a lot. But I still loved him because I could see his heart. His heart was really good towards people. But him and his wife had gone down to Las Vegas for a show, and he was in the trucking industry, and there were going to be some trucks there or something, and they had followed the GPS and got off track in the mountains off on a logging trip. Some people would know about this story because it was all over the news and on ABC and everywhere, but Rita, my sister-in-law, was left in the van, and he tried to walk and get help and go over the mountain. Rita lived in the van for 40 days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. If you look up my last name on the Facebook, then you can find all about the story. But anyways, he went to get help, and he had given Rita a map of where he was going. He said he'd be back in 3 days. Well, he didn't ever come back. And not snowmobilers, but ATVers found her after 40 days in the van. She had survived. She had used a creek to go up and down to get water. She had rationed her trail mix. The story is incredible. So anyways, but we didn't know what had happened to Albert when they had found Rita. We were all excited about Rita, and she had prayed to God. Friday, she had prayed to God that if for Mother's Day, that was going to be Mother's Day, May, whenever that was, about seven years ago, but she had prayed that God would either have her back with her boys, she had 3 boys, or that she'd be in heaven. That was Friday morning. She got back in the van, and that's what she prayed. And the ATVers found her on that day. And we were all together on Mother's Day of that year with the boys, all surrounded in somewhere in Nevada, if I remember. And so it was an incredible story. And so we never knew what actually happened to Albert. And they found him about 10 months later. And they had found his backpack on a trail, and then they had found him, and he had been, under the snow, and he was actually still, part of him was still there, and he had the blanket over him. So the comfort was knowing that he had just probably died of hypothermia. We were worried that maybe the animals had got him or something, but that he had died of hypothermia. I hadn't at that time gone through my journey with forgiving him, so it was a difficult time for me when he passed. Although I've always loved him. He's a complicated person. He loves to be a bully, but he's got a big, huge, gigantic heart. Anyways, yeah, so that's kind of the story. I didn't mean to trail off on all of that, but an incredible story.
Absolutely. And it adds so much to this because of the whole situation of him bullying you when you were younger and even when he was older, having a big heart, but still, teasing and maybe teasing a little bit too much. And do you think he ever knew that he had hurt you so deeply?
I do think so, because even his wife would say things. Even people that I talk to now as adults, they knew about it from my childhood. So everybody knew about it, and everybody that was surrounded knew that Albert just loved to, he just was nasty to me.
Yeah.
Just loved to tease me, just loved it. He woke up to do it every morning. So everybody kind of knew about it. And Rita would tell him, his wife would say, you really need to calm down on Lorraine, because he'd still tease me when, not fatty 2x4. He stopped that. That was when I was a child. So yeah.
Wow. You have such a great heart. I'm assuming that it runs in the family, that everybody in your family had a great heart, and your father and your mom and your other siblings. And
right.
Yeah.
There were 6 of us, and we do. We have a good family. No family is perfect.
Right.
And we all kind of come into this, and there can be some dysfunction. As a child, when there's a little bit dysfunction, we don't know how to sort it through.
Right.
So we take on these different elements, or we take things personally, or we're the victim. And that's kind of what I did. I will tell you, Nada, I'm loving life now. So there's always hope out there, no matter what anybody's experienced. When you take responsibility for you and for your happiness, that what's neat about it is when you take care of your happiness, you have more to give to the world. I grew up our home was a little bit religious, and I always thought, if I thought about myself, it was selfish, that I was being self-centered. And the opposite is true. When I take care of myself, I have much more to give to others and to listen to others and be there, because I am complete in myself and I don't need anybody else. So now I have everything to give. And that's what's exciting.
Absolutely. And do you think more people are starting to understand that it's self-care, it's not selfish when we take care of ourselves? Because if we don't take care of ourselves, it's that old adage of the well, there's nothing left in there to give to anybody.
Right.
So we have to be able to go to that place and take care of ourselves so we can show up as better people and really be able to help other people in the world. And then I think you're not going around in the world so pissed off because you feel really good about yourself because you took care of yourself, whatever that taking care of looks like for each individual person.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think times have changed, that we're much more aware of that in our society now than as a child. That was 60 years ago. And
Yeah.
so my mom didn't talk about self-care to me. No, she didn't ever mention that. You just kind of, worked hard, you were honest, and you never thought about yourself. You thought about other people. So I think the self-care aspect of living right now is so wonderful, because it's absolutely true, Nate. If you don't take care of yourself, you have nothing to give to anybody, because you're giving from an empty cup. When you take care of yourself, you're giving from a full, overflowing. It's an abundance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And you are overflowing and full of abundance of love and zest for life. And you just can feel the happy energy that's with you. And it's just such a beautiful thing, Lorraine, and what a blessing you are to the entire world and the people that you meet. Your radio show, we're going to start wrapping this up and bringing it in for a landing. And I wonder if you would be willing to tell the audience, I know your audience obviously knows about your show, but I would love to share it with my audience. And if you can tell me a little bit about your show, which is Never Too Late Ever. Can you tell me a little bit what you talk about on there?
Okay, Never Too Late Ever. And I've been on the radio show for about 8 months. And it's about the fact that it is never too late to turn your ship around. So I'm 60, but I have had people on my show that are 80 that are dynamite. And so it is just never too late to go after your dreams in your life, never too late to lose weight, never too late to make your marriage better or make your relationships with your children. We often think of, especially when you get older into your 60s, some people have resigned and think, oh, life is just the way it is. It's always been this way. Well, it's not true. You can make the next 20 or 30 years of your life just dynamite. And so it's all about that. So I have different guests on. Some last week was on listening skills, which I just loved learning. And so I have guests that tell their stories, all kinds of, just a variety of guests that are really helpful for those that just want to be inspired and motivated to make a difference.
Yeah, fabulous. Right. The more the merrier. And I think the more empowered we become when we know that there's all of these other jet setters out there doing it, showing us role models that are already doing it when they're in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. Once you start talking to people that have hit those kinds of ages, 70s and 80s and 90s, and they're doing stuff, you have no excuse. You can't say, I'm too old. It's like, BS. Look at all these people that are doing it. That's just your mindset. You got to change your mindset and decide you want to do it differently.
Right, exactly. And Nada, sometimes I've seen videos of women. I remember of somebody that was about 93 or 94 who was in gymnastics and was amazing. So you are right. There's no excuse. There just never is, because your life is exactly how you make it. And like I said, we're 100% responsible for our own lives. So if we want to make the next 15, 20 years like crazy, wonderful, it's up to us. And yeah. And I'd like the audience know that if they go to LorraineHoving.com, they can go on my website and then download my top tips for living an extraordinary life, and they might enjoy that. So
Yes, absolutely. And I know that was your free gift that you were offering. And in the show notes, that will be in there. So, listeners, if you did not catch her name, don't worry. Keep driving your car. It will be in the show notes. And Lorraine's name will be in there. Her website will be in there. And the free gift will be in there. And how to contact Lorraine will also be in there. So, don't worry. I promise you, it will all be in there. Because Lorraine, you are just such a light. You have inspired me. I'm not that many years behind you, but you have inspired me to be everything that I can possibly be. And I love the trauma that you've overcome. I love the grace and the beauty that you did it in. And I just love seeing that and hearing that smile on your face and that true, brilliant life that comes out of you. And just what a blessing it is for other people to be around that. So thank you so very much for sharing that with us and sharing your time with us today.
right. And I appreciate you, Nada. It's so exciting to talk to you. I wish we could, hug. That's
Yes.
how I feel like. I just wish we were closer. But hearing your voice and your laughter is just, I know that you live each day to the best that you know how to also, and that you are totally inspiring and motivating. So I'm excited for your show and for your listeners.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lorraine. Yes. And I have a feeling we'll be talking again down the road here. I would love to have you on here again and give the listeners some more inspired ideas and let us know what you're up to now. And the final thing, I almost forgot about this. With your radio show, was that something you aspired to do, or did that just happen?
That happened. I was doing an online summit, and one of my last guests was Dr. Gail Carson, the icon that you met.
Yes.
Yes, and right after the show, we had such good energy throughout the show, and I just kind of knew it was going well. And so right after the show, I looked at my email, and suddenly I get this email, and she said that she'd like to offer me my own show on her network. And I was like, I remember looking at it going, are you kidding me? Is this really happening? So, I was just thrilled, and she is a delight. In fact, she's on my show the next 2 weeks. And Nada, you're going to be on my show, which thrills me for your audience also. So I'll be interviewing you in a few weeks.
Yes, you will. And I'll let everybody know when that's going to happen and when that's going to be aired out on your show and my show. I'll let everybody know when those are coming out. So all of that will be sent out in emails and social media. So you won't be missing out on anything. So
perfect. And for the audience, go out there and make your life the best that you can. It's never too late ever. Like I've said, until it is. And so what we want to do is live every day that we have to the best of our ability to love ourselves, love others. And it's an incredible life when we get our eyes off of feeling like we're a victim and get our eyes on to taking 100% responsibility to loving others.
Absolutely. It's a game changer. It
is.
Yeah. Lorraine, thank you so very much. I'm sending you a big energetic hug all the way from Minnesota, and I know it's going to reach you. And I adore you. I love you. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. And
okay.
Yes. And everybody, don't forget, all of the information will be there on the show notes. So you will be able to connect with Lorraine, no problem. So thank you all for being with us today. I hope you enjoyed the zesty and full of life, full-spirited Lorraine, and I know you had to walk away with some great tips from this. So enjoy, live life to the fullest, and remember, you can dare a new belief in what is possible for your life. Much love, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Please go to nadahogan.com for show notes and other information that you can use right away. If you like what you've heard here, please subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to rate and review right there on iTunes, Stitcher, or however you get your podcasts. And don't forget to tell your friends about it. We'll see you next week.